All right, folks, we're going to get started. Welcome, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. We're really excited to get going with an action-packed hour or so ahead. Today, we are talking about ChatGPT for customer service and Intercom's new product, Fin. I'm going to be your host for today. My name is Catherine, and I head up Intercom's partnerships team. And just before we get going and introduce our speakers and our agenda, I do have a couple of quick housekeeping items to go through for you all. So over on the right of your screen, you'll see a specific Q&A tab beside the chat tab. So after you've introduced yourself, please feel free to go in and submit your questions there throughout the presentation. And you can upvote on questions submitted by others as well. We are going to have a ton of time for live Q&A today, and we'll make sure we get through as many of your questions as we can towards the end of the hour. And any questions we don't get to live, we will answer later on as well. You should also know that this session is being recorded, and we will be sending out a link to you afterwards, as well as some other follow-up bits and bobs. So with that, I am going to give you a little flavor of what we're going to cover in the next hour, because we've got a lot of exciting stuff ahead. You're going to hear from our speakers, first of all, today on the latest AI enhancements, and specifically how we believe that they're going to change the game for the customer service industry and for support teams and content design teams alike. We will then take a deeper dive into the innovation behind our brand new product, Fin, before we jump into a live demo. And as I just said, we're going to reserve as much time as we can for a live Q&A with the team. So please keep your questions coming throughout. And we have an all-star cast joining us today. I'm thrilled to be joined by Des Traynor, who's one of our co-founders and our Chief Strategy Officer. We have Fergal Reid, who's our Head of AI and Machine Learning, and Emmet Connolly, our VP of Product Design. And over in the chat, we are also joined by some folks from our product team. We have Brian Donoghue, our VP of Product, as well as Hugo Ribera, who is one of our principal product engineers on this product. They're both going to be jumping into the Q&A to help answer your questions as well. So with that, we'll get started. So with that, I'm really pleased to introduce Des, first of all. Des, I want to throw to you with a quick question to get us started, really around kind of the general trends that we're seeing in the industry at the moment. Like, I sit on our sales floor in the Dublin office, and there's just been a ton of excitement over the last week, both from our sales team and from our customers about Fin. Two things that have really stood out from our customer feedback so far is, number one, how easy it is to set up, and number two, how quickly it gets going with really intelligent answers. But, you know, as we know, sometimes new technology comes out and seems like it'll change the game, only to then fall short of expectations. So I'd love to hear from you, like, what's convinced you that we're not on a hype curve here and that this is the real deal?
I think usage is, like, the actual seeing the product live is the biggest indicator that this is not smoke and mirrors. This is not vaporware. This is not even like sort of VC pumped up hype shit like Web3 or whatever. Like, generally speaking, you know, hype is usually something that, like, everyone's trying to generate it to profit off it. Like, our customers want this product. No one who actually, like, no one who gets what it does is, like, in any way in doubt about its value. And then I think, you know, with even the demo bot, like the Stay B&B bot that's live on intercom.com/Fin or whatever, you can actually, like, see it even there. Like, you know, it actually gives really good answers to really common questions. I personally ran through, like, all the questions I'd ever asked Airbnb, of whom it's a kind of a type of competitor to, if you like, the Stay B&B product. Every question I asked, I got, like, at least a 7 out of 10 answer, and in a few cases I got a 10 out of 10 answer, and I got them instantly. And you know, a point I often make to folks is, like, if you had the option between, like, a very good answer immediately, or you could, if you preferred, wait 15 minutes and get a handcrafted artisanal answer, most people are picking the instant answer. And that's good for the business too, right? If you're trying to do something and you have to wait 15 minutes before you can get to the next step, that's not an effective funnel. You'd never design it that way. So I think, like, here's the differences between this and, like, say, a hype train. And, like, I don't want to just keep picking on, like, either crypto or Web3. They're just the two most recent sort of hype trains. You could look at, like, gamification. If you went back, you could possibly talk about AR and VR. You could even say, like, self-driving cars have yet to actually really land. This is here today. You know, like, people play with ChatGPT, people play with Bing, people play with Bard, people play with DALL-E. There's more coming. No one is like not experiencing this in any way, and the reason the customers are like asking for like the Salesforce Alive is pretty much because everyone is seeing it and living it and breathing it, and it feels like every week that passes is like a decade of AI progress at the moment. Because like even for us, like things like Finn went from being that's probably not going to happen anytime soon, mate, in like early November, to being like, we're close, but it's still a good bit away, which is where I think we were in maybe December, to like, this is happening in January, right? And that's the pace of progress that we're seeing here. So it's not only have we taken like a gargantuan step forward, like we, the industry, not just Intercom, but also every week we seem to be just taking faster steps as well. So I really like, I think at this point to call a hype, you'd have to be like the darkest of skeptics or cynics, maybe.
Yeah, I think, as you say, we've moved really, really fast here, and as such, there's a huge mindset shift kind of required of the industry at large right now, particularly the customer service industry. So, like, how do you kind of tackle like where this has come up for you when kind of questions come up about striking a new balance between kind of that human, personal, kind of artisanal, handcrafted answer, this incredible new tech that's out there, but also like the kind of macroeconomic climate and this like desire to achieve economic efficiency and consolidate tools. Like, how do you see this kind of changing the game in terms of how businesses can strike that balance?
I think what businesses now have a real clean option to do is provide top tier, like super personal support on the issues that need it, and provide incredibly fast support on the issues where a simple, fast answer will do. So you can imagine, like on any given day in Intercom, we will deal with how do we get a new API key, and we'll also deal with some confusion about, I put a series live 2 weeks ago and I'm just checking, and one of the customers should have received it, but now I'm saying that they're spam blocked, and how do I unblock, blah, 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 blah. The first one is like, it still takes a little bit of time to answer that question around. It takes a bit of our time, takes a bit of the customer's time. The second one is actually a messy one, and it could take an hour to diagnose, or it could take 2 hours to diagnose. And like that's an actual interoperative thing, but the first one drags on our ability to do the second one. And I think every support team has a version of that. They've complicated queries like, hey, I've booked a room for 7 nights, but I only need it for 5, and I'm checking out halfway through and coming back, or something like that. And they also have, where's the swimming pool, and like the idea is that by removing so much of like what I would call like the undifferentiated transactional support, you really enable and empower the support team to actually deliver the high quality support in the more complicated moments, the more emotionally charged moments, the more urgent moments, the more emotive moments. Like they're the ones where where the support team really like drives business value. You don't actually hire a support team to have a bunch of professional apologists or explainers of like, click here to reset password. Like that's not useful, but at the same time, it's still kind of unavoidable. So I think that's the balance for me, is in finding that sweet spot of like, where does the support team drive most value, and where are we just frustrating our customers? And it's not like, a brand building opportunity to explain how to reset your password. It's just a bloody link. And that's where Finn shines, and then support teams shine when where they know how to shine, if you know what I mean. So that to me is the balance.
Yeah, which completely makes sense. And I think, yeah, as you say, just figuring out what's automatable and what's actually going to need that kind of deeper, more meaningful kind of human conversation. And I think, this is obviously, the game is going to change again and again and again over the next kind of, 3, 6, 9, 12 months, thinking about where we were this time last year. And there's going to be like inherently more and more value for support teams in this field in future. But if we were kind of to focus on the here and now for a second, like what's the main kind of value driver for support teams like today, and how should customer service teams think about getting ahead of the game and getting ready to use this technology in the best possible way for their business?
Yeah, I think any future-facing support team should start assuming that we're entering a world where AI is going to hugely augment and empower them in their workflows. It's the first thing I'd say. If you're in any way future-facing, you have a massive opportunity to deliver world-class support for your company and ultimately give your company a competitive edge over its competitors by basically saying like, our support is just better than anyone's. Now, how do you prepare for this world? Well, it's like, I'll give you the short answer and then I'll explain it. Like, short answer is you prepare for it by documenting all of the knowledge that like support teams know. Why does that matter? Well, the advancements here are in the realm of large language models that can ultimately consume information and just, return conversational answers around them. They don't know things you don't tell them. Like, well, the way you want them to work, you don't want them to make up facts. Let's put it that way, right? You want them to work off things that are like known. And so, like, if, for example, you have a policy upon which you'll reissue an API key, but that's not explained anywhere, and it's kind of like a tacit knowledge conferred by osmosis around a support team, Finn nor anyone's ever going to work that out unless they start like scraping through the backlogs or whatever. I think the best way to be prepared is to have like a clear stance on all of the most common things that support teams do, and that clear stance should be written in a pretty clear way. It's like easy to parse, not like it doesn't actually matter, honestly. The things are so good that it'll work it out anyway, but like for your own sake you should be clear. And like to the degree that you can document the majority of the things that you need to know to be a support agent, that's the degree to which Finn will become a rock star member of your team. So that the best way to prep is to really do that. And like there, thankfully a lot of our customers who use articles, like they're already like, they already have like hundreds of articles explaining all this. So they're good to go, but if you're not there yet, now is a great time to invest.
Gotcha. So I think the job of like help center content writers and content designers has all of a sudden just become much more of a desirable commodity.
Yeah, I mean, it should. I mean, maybe not even a commodity, right? I agree. I think I've been surprised, honestly, just as a side note, the content design community have been kind of slow to this in my experience. I follow a lot of them. I've been a member of that community over the years. But yeah, like content will be a type of king. I'm not saying we're going to establish a monarchy here, but like content will play a really important role, and people with great content will be able to deliver world-class support. So I think it's well worth the investment.
Gotcha. And Fergal, I'd love to bring you in actually for the next kind of question here, and just kind of go a little bit of a level deeper, I suppose, into Finn. We've launched it last week, and I'd love to hear from you from a technical perspective. Like, what makes Finn different and what makes Finn powerful? Would just love to hear from you on like what we built and how we built it.
Sure, Catherine. Thanks, and thanks everyone for coming along. Yeah, look, it's large language models are the new breakthrough, and we've had Resolution Bot, we've had it for years. It uses neural networks. It works very well at what it's good at once you settle up. But the models we use for that, they're not as good at understanding the complexity of human conversation. And, so many times in a support exchange, we see it that somebody asks a question and then they get a piece of information back and then they ask a clarifying question or a nuancing question. They're like, oh, that's not exactly what I meant. I actually meant to ask about that. And, with Resolution Bot, we tried to build prototypes that understood that sort of complexity of natural language. We could never get them to work as well as we wanted on that sort of multi-turn, messy human conversation. And what I think is new here is that large language models in, transformer models, GPT, they've got that down. And if you go and play with Finn, we've watched people play with the demo, and we've just seen so many examples where it does the right thing on a follow-on question. And we sort of think that there's a qualitative change there. That's sort of like, it's 10% better, 20% better at answering a follow-on question. It transforms the user experience. It makes people think, okay, wow, suddenly I can talk about this, I can talk with it, and I can kind of trust it. And so that's new. There's a fundamental UX change here in terms of the quality of a bot that you can build and that you can deliver. And then I guess the second big piece to it is that the language model it's better at natural language, and that means it can understand help center content better. If you give it an article, it is amazingly good at, picking out an answer from that article and giving the correct answer. To the point where we've had many instances where we're like, oh no, it hallucinated. We're like, oh, actually, no, that is what the article says, because we might be testing this on articles from a public help center that we're not experts in. And we're like, no, Finn did a better job of understanding that than we would. And again, it's not perfect. And one thing is, it requires a nuance. Des's point earlier about content. You really want your content to be unambiguously written, because we're trying to design the bot so that, you know, it doesn't give the wrong answer if something's ambiguous. And so if you play with Fin, you'll notice it's pretty conservative if there's something written in an article that's ambiguous. And I bet over the next few years, we're all going to learn a lot about bits of our help center articles that are accidentally ambiguous, and we're going to get them a lot sharper, because we're just going to see those edge cases and iterate on that and make them sharper over time. So yeah, that's what's new. Those are transformational capabilities.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think fair to say, like, ChatGPT has kind of reset expectations generally around maybe some of the most common misconceptions about AI. Like, what would you say you've kind of seen the most significant shifts on there?
So I mean, that's obviously it's a huge question, and you know, just seeing people play with our demo, one of the big misconceptions for users at the moment is that you can come along to a bot like this and ask it anything, ask it to help you with your homework, right? And that's not what Fin is designed for. And Fin is designed very explicitly and clearly to stay away from that. It's going to answer questions about your help center, or it's just going to say, sorry, I can't help you with that. So there's definitely an end user expectation there now that, like, oh, I can ask a bot like this. Once the bot has got natural language understanding, that it's okay to ask it to help me with my homework, or where the capital of Argentina is, or any other question. And, you know, I think that misconception will change pretty fast. I think that, you know, everyone has seen ChatGPT, and I think that now we're going to see the next wave of, you know, folks like Intercom. Hey, how can we take our existing tech and our existing setup and marry that with the GPT style tech to make better experiences, more constrained experiences? And, you know, over the next sort of like 6 months or a year, I think the user expectation will change. There's lots of misconceptions on the technical side as well. You know, these models, they do really, really well out of the box. They do really, really well without sort of like a great degree of training. You can't even train today. If you want to go and take GPT-4 or, you know, any of the other large language models, you can't go and train those at the moment for your specific business or even for your specific domain. And there's an extent to which they do amazingly well out of the box without that training. And then there's other ways around it, like, you know, how we've built Fin and engineered Fin. We give them a lot of context on the business as you sort of just interact with them. So I think we're all learning here, and I think the industry is going to have to learn a lot about sort of the parameters of these models and like what makes a good user experience. So yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I think, you know, we all had a good play around with ChatGPT when it came out, and like it's super impressive. But it's really clear, like we're doing more than just that with Fin here, you know, kind of outside of what these LLMs are doing out there in the market for free. And so, like, what would you kind of call out as Intercom's kind of secret sauce here, like kind of the thing that's going to be most impressive for kind of customers and their customers who are going to kind of come in and kind of get a hold of Fin and take it out into the market?
So kind of weirdly, I think it's that we're both doing more and less, right? In that, like, we feel that it's really good and really important to have a bot that will just respond with curated content from your help desk. That, like, someone can go and ask it a question where, you know, you might not want a bot answering their particular question. People will ask questions that could cause brand damage. They could start asking like, if you just went and deployed, you know, sort of a naive or ChatGPT style bot, people will go and they'll ask it questions about your competitors, and it'll talk to them about your competitors. And, you know, who knows what it will say? It will say whatever the internet says about your competitors. And you almost certainly don't want your customers in those conversations. You would not be happy if your support representatives were doing that. You're not going to be happy if your bot does that. And so what we feel is so exciting about Fin is that it's limited. It is limited to your help center. And, you know, we've put a lot of care and attention into building it, trying to capture the sort of the magic of the natural language dialogue with the ability to limit and to trust it. And I think, as maybe Des alluded to earlier, we've had a bit of a roller coaster here. You know, like back in, you know, after ChatGPT launched, we were like, oh my God, this is going to like disrupt support. This is going to happen really fast. And then we're like, oh, actually, no, it's not, because it's not trustworthy. It gives very superficially appealing answers. They're not trustworthy. And I think now we're like, as the technology has gotten better and as we've learned to use it more, we're like, no, it's possible to build trustworthy, business ready tools here. And yeah, they have limitations. You know, Fin even if the underlying language model knows the answer from something it learned about your business or about a competitor from the internet, if it's not in your knowledge base, it won't respond. And we've deliberately engineered it like that. And we have a lot of conviction that that is what customers are going to want. Now, we have to deploy it across a few thousand customers. And as always, people will tell us, and there will be like edge cases and so on. But we have a lot of conviction in that. We think, and the initial response from our customers has been very positive. People can let us know in the questions if we're way off on that. Yeah.
Of course, and maybe just to pull on that thread a little bit around like applications of the tech. So for folks who maybe aren't aware in the kind of on the webinar here today, back in January, we actually launched a bunch of features in the Intercom inbox with kind of AI assist behind them. So for things like conversation summaries or text expanders, whereas Finn is obviously a customer-facing product. So where do you see AI being most heavily weighted or most valuable for support? Will we continue to invest in AI for support agents as well as for that end customer experience as well?
Absolutely, we will continue to invest in it. The question of where is most important is really hard, and I'm totally bought in on the value of AI here. And in the past, I've been in the machine learning team in Intercom for about 5 years. But I've been skeptical, right? Like part of my job has always been to be skeptical. When someone came along and they said, hey, my bot today will resolve 90% of customer queries, I've always been like, oh, no, it won't. We're not seeing that. It won't do 90%. And now I'm much less skeptical. I really think that like, hey, this next generation of tech is going to be really transformative. And I think it's going to be transformative across customer support. I think we're going to have better bots that kind of you can set live and they'll talk to your customers like Finn. And then also for the conversations that it can't address and that fall through, we're going to have way faster support rep experiences. So we believe very strongly in investing heavily in both, basically. There's no way at this point that both aren't going to radically change. And just the pace of the underlying technology continues to amaze and astonish even people, I think, like us who are very close to it. Like things are changing month by month. And so, I just think it's going to be a wild few years for customer support, customer service. And we're really excited about it and determined to be in there, kind of turning them into valuable features as fast as possible. So,
yeah, awesome. So it's a win-win situation for support teams and end customers. I feel like this is a really good segue into our demo, and Emmet's going to jump into that in a sec. But before we do that, I know our Q&A and our chat panel are both absolutely flooded with amazing questions from folks here today. We do have Brian and Hugo manning the Q&A. If you've asked a question, you can kind of click on the question in there to view the answer that Hugo and Brian have kind of popped in there so far. And just a quick reminder to submit questions in the Q&A so we can pick them up from there, because the chat is moving really fast. You all are really engaged. But I'm going to throw to Emmet now. Emmet Connolly is our VP of Product Design here. And Emmet, before we get into the demo, I'd just love to get kind of a quick summary from you on like what is it that we built, and then what are kind of the standout features for you in Finn?
Yeah, so Des and Fergal have, I guess, provided a lot of background on the technology and the context that we're launching this into. What we've actually built and launched is Finn. It's a natural language chat inside our messenger, which can exist inside your product. And we've had chatbot functionality in Intercom for years actually, but Finn first of all introduces some big improvements over the state of the art so far. First of all, about this, it's excellent at understanding natural language questions, all sorts of questions that get typed at it, and actually making sense of them, and then providing natural language answers that are generated to be a direct answer to the question, not just a quote from an article or a pre-canned snippet, but a yes, you can do that, or no, you cannot do that, in response to straight answers. It can, from a language point of view, do other things as well. It can hold kind of full plain English conversations where there's a back and forth and a summary, if you like, by which I mean you can say, oh, can I bring pets with me when I'm staying in my and it'll say yes you can, and then you can say, well, how many can I bring? It understands that how many can I bring actually relates to pets that we were talking about in the previous question. So you just get this very natural back and forth flow that's enabled. It can ask clarifying questions if you don't ask a very, it can follow up and so on. So all of this is based on the GPT-4 model, and this is this kind of cutting edge language model that lots of people have heard about and tried at this stage. For direct use in a product, these things have some problems. They're trained on all of the content of the web. Anything anyone says about your company on the internet could potentially be piped through. And I think it was Fergal said it, like, well, you know, whatever you would not want your support staff talking about, we would not want the bot to talk about either. You know, we would not want it to be willing to talk about almost any subject outside of your domain of your company, but also, you know, provide almost any answer that it can find from the wild web out there about your company. And then finally, this tendency, some people might have heard about the tendency to hallucinate, which is to make up very confident sounding answers that actually tend to not be true. With Finn, we really set out to actually solve a lot of these problems. So first of all, it's trained on your knowledge-based content, the articles that are in base, and it's essentially constrained to that content. So it can talk about, and it's willing to answer questions within that area, but not outside of that. And actually, you know, will decline to engage in conversations about other topics. And we really realized that in some cases, having a bot say, I don't know, or I'm not going to talk about that with you, is actually a feature, you know, and something that you really, we wanted to really drive the trustworthiness as much as we could. So we also have it linked to its source material. This allows people to get a simple answer from Finn, but also click through, read the article, learn a lot more, and kind of do their homework, if you like. So we really put a lot of effort into that. And part of this is because when we talk to customers, we realize that the support you provide is an extension of your brand, a key touch point, and you don't want the bot going rogue. I think someone in the chat was saying. So that was an important thing. The fact that it's trained on your knowledge base, which already exists in many cases, means that there's essentially zero setup required to actually turn this thing on. You point it at your knowledge base, you say set it live, and straight away the bot slurps up all of that information, treats that as its corpus of knowledge, and can begin answering questions really instantly. And so one of the things that really stands out to me, apart from all of these fancy capabilities, is the barrier to entry to actually adopting the product is so low. There's almost no reason to not give it a go and see how it works for you. We just think that the cost benefit ratio of doing that, like, well, point it at my help center and turn it on and have it start answering questions is ridiculous and ridiculously positive ratio, and a really good reason for people to adopt Finn and just give it a go. And then the call out that special and unique about this is it works with the rest of your system. It's not this standalone chatbot that's kind of stupidly trying to answer questions and sometimes failing. We were able to build these constraints around it and the safety features around it because we have the rest of Intercom and particularly support teams that we can pass those queries. And so Finn will say, look, I don't know, or I'm not at liberty to talk about that topic, but I can pass you on to my support team who can. That kind of goes back to what Des was talking about, of having the bot to answer the questions that it's good at and allowing support teams to really shine where they're best. So in short, I suppose it's a conversational, trustworthy, zero setup AI bot designed to really complement support teams and work alongside them. And we've even had people saying, wow, it feels like having an additional support team member, you know, in that handover process. It can ask clarifying questions so that the team has a lot more context before they even get the message sent to them. So it's even helping the teams rather than simply helping the customers directly.
Gotcha. So it's like really rooted in like high confidence. It knows its limits and it knows what it's good at as well. Emmet, I think you're going to jump into a screen share now and actually walk us through a demo of this with some sample questions for Stay B&B.
Okay, so here we have our actual live demo that is working today on our website, as you can see here. What I'm going to do is, you know, maybe a lot of people have gone in and tried this out already, but I'm going to run through a couple of demo questions and actually kind of explain the scenes and how it illustrates that this is different. So here we have Stay-B&B, our fictional vacation rental company, and I'm able to ask it a question. In reality, this messenger would be embedded in your own product, and customers would open to get help. So let me start with the kind of a fairly straightforward question. I'm going to ask about my reservation, and is there a charge for canceling my reservation? Okay. This, I would imagine, for a company of this type, is the type of query that they see extremely high volumes of. You know, maybe they have macros or saved replies to automatically respond to them, but it's still kind of like a lot of manual work for teams to get through the questions and answer them. And so it's a great example of what Fin can do really simply and really well. So what it's done here is answered question, a very straight answer to the question. This answer has been generated from the knowledge that it's garnered from your knowledge base. That was helpful, and that kind of did answer my question, but I'll ask a follow-up question maybe. So how do I actually cancel? I'm trying to phrase this in the kind of plain English language ways that people would naturally ask, actually go and do it, or how do I actually cancel? I'm not, you know, typing a search query here. I'm holding quite a conversational back and forth. And so it's going to, you know, come back and again, give a very straight answer to the question. This knowledge, as we were talking about earlier, exists or is documented in our articles. One of the things I can actually do if I want to learn more is click, go through, read the actual article that it's learned this from and it's generated its answer from, and do a lot more further. This is an area that I really want to like dig into a lot more. So there are all sorts of questions that I can ask this thing, and it's quite a lot of fun to see if you can test its limit. And really, the limits, as we were describing before, are basically the limits of what knowledge you embed in your help center. So look, there was, I'm going to try this one again. Sorry. Let me see. Okay. Let's see if it works this time. And so one of the things I think you notice is as your customers engage with a bot like this, you start to see where your gaps are. And so earlier, going in and filling some of those gaps, creating more robust set of knowledge in your knowledge base is a great way to actually for this type of thing. We had some minor availability issues. I realized that having 5,500 people try the demo at the exact same time I was going to demo it was maybe not the best example. Another example. Here it comes. Okay, it was just a little bit slow. So yes, toilet paper should be provided. Was that helpful? Yeah, that was actually helpful. So thank you for that. And again, it will ask these follow-ups. I can come back with another. I'm not going to ask it anymore about toilet paper, but I so wished. I'll start again and go into another example maybe. What should I ask it next? Let me see. I'm going to ask it about pets. So can I bring a pet? And here again, now I have a sense that there is an answer in the depths of the knowledge base about this. So one of the things I like here is I'm going to ask a different version of that question in a second to illustrate this, but can I bring a pet? Yes, you can bring a pet. Okay. Let me imagine if I ask that in a slightly different way. Do all properties allow pets? This is going to draw on the exact same knowledge base to actually generate its answer, but it's going to, I would imagine, come back. And again, each of these answers is generated on the fly to the very unique questions that's asked about it. But it's going to try and answer a direct question, not just a pre-canned question. Not just provide a pre-canned answer. So here it's directly answering the slightly different flavor that I asked. Well, not all properties allow pets, and so you need, here's advice, and I can again dig deep. Can they sleep in the bed? So here again, what is illustrate that this question on its own, if asked in isolation, yep, that's what I'm asking, and actually the system is really demonstrating well here how it actually works, right? It asked me a clarifying question. I asked this ambiguous question. A less intelligent, so to speak, bot would not understand, can they sleep in the bed, and what that meant. But because it's got this, what you might think of reasoning, it's able to understand that this is a follow-on question to the previous one that I asked, right? Here it's asking me, answering my question very directly. It depends, pets are allowed to sleep in the bed based on blah, blah, blah. I'm gonna go, I think it's a kind of an important one. Let me try something like, my code won't work, help. Now, this is a pretty ambiguous question by anyone's standards. Let's first of all see how it does with the, come back and ask a clarifying question. It might say that it won't. Let's give it a chance. Okay, didn't answer a question to that. And what it's actually saying, now bear in mind, this is a demo. So it's saying, unfortunately, I'm a demo. There is no team to pass you over. But in a production environment, this would pass you straight over to the team. You know, maybe they're locked out of the apartment. The security code doesn't work. Help. This is kind of an emergency. The team is there on standby, and they can do a real hands-on support situation. Ask one more, which is, can you book me a flight home? This is like an adjacent question. You know, someone might be forgiven to ask a question like this of a state B type company, but this is outside of the bounds of what the company actually does and what the bot wants to engage with. And so again, you know, I just do, well, in this case, maybe you wouldn't want to talk to a human. I'll just illustrate this anyway. Say, hey, I just want to talk to a human, put to them, and hopefully it will do that. And so again, a feature of the bot is what it refuses to do or can't do. It's actually not necessarily what it can't do, it won't do. And again, all of those problems can be handed over to the support team. So I will probably leave it. I would encourage everyone, I'm using the live demo on the same website that everybody has access to, so give it a go, questions yourself. But I hope this illustrates at a high level some of the capabilities and the intentional things that we've built into how the bot serves support teams.
Emmet, thanks a million for that. It was fascinating to watch. I think there's some really great examples of like where Finn excels and then also where it knows its own limits. We are going to go straight into the Q&A because I know we have tons of questions lined up, and I've got a couple here just to ask live of the team. The first one's going to be a question for Des, and it's a question from Elliot Little. Hi, Elliot. And Elliot asks, AI is obviously a threat to customer support roles. So how would you recommend operations CS leads upskill their teams going forward and make the most of tools such as Finn? I think we touched on this a little bit earlier on, but like anything else that you'd add in terms of kind of prepping for this new feature?
The CS role will absolutely remain. What it'll elevate to is like knowledge management. But also, it can get more proactive. It can get like, so ultimately support is, because of just the nature of the go to the support, it tends to be quite reactive. And as a result, something has to go wrong and somebody has to know something went wrong so that they go and talk to support. What I of tomorrow will do is manage the content, manage the intelligence, and then also like identify opportunities to be proactive. And instead of things go wrong, focus on making sure everything goes right. And that's the proactive side of support, which I think is where we can get to. And that's when like support becomes truly a profit center. People have been saying for years, profit center, this is the time it can be. That's my answer to that.
Gotcha. So moving from cost center to profit center. Love it. Next question is, I think, a Fergal question, although Emmet, feel free to jump in here as well. And it's really around kind of customization and trainability. It's a question from Rosalie Fraser. So for example, we use different terms across our customer base for user or patient instead of customer. It would be ideal if we could train our chat to use those terms as well. Will that be possible?
So at the moment, out of the gate, we're not doing any sort of like training or of the model. It's really good if your articles, if your help center articles that are customer facing are written with the same sort of quick terms that the customer will ask about or will query about. It's very good on picking that up. So like, you know, if your help center articles are written in terms of the terms user and patient, and then, you know, people come and like ask you questions in those terms, it's very good at picking that up. This is something we are like, we want to make the bot work. We want to make it work well. And so like at the moment, we're pretty optimistic that it'll be able to out of the gate do a lot without sort of training and customization. But there's lots of options to build that in. And so if this is a stumbling block, we'll learn about that use case and we will do things in that direction. So, you know, it's like we're at the start of figuring out how to bring this and make it really work for people. We're really confident that what we've built already will create value for, you know, most businesses out of the gate. You know, if we have deficits there for particular unusual businesses, we'll figure something out there. We've been down that road at Resolution Bot before and had to build that sort of stuff in.
Gotcha. Which I think is maybe a nice kind of segue, actually. I know we had this question pop up in the chat, and I would love if you could kind of answer this quickly, Fergal, before we kind of move on. How do you see Fin and Resolution Bot working side by side? I know that this has come up from a ton of our customers as well.
Yeah, at the moment, basically our model is that like, hey, if you want to start off, you don't use Resolution, but you want to start off out of the gate, you can set Fin live, and within like, you know, first day one, it's going to be able to answer like pretty much all the questions that are covered in your knowledge base. You get value right away. And if you're an existing customer of Resolution Bot, or if you're a new customer, net new for bots, and you're like, hey, how do I go further? I want to be able to take an action, take a custom action. I want to be able to go and like use my existing Resolution Bot answers and my Resolution Bot workflows. They will like layer on top of Fin. So if you ask a question that Resolution Bot, you know, has already been trained to answer, then that will come in and that will kind of like give the custom answer that you've went and you've sweated and you've created by hand. Maybe it's got like an action in there to be able to like, you know, reset the person's account if you set up a custom action with that. But then if that doesn't work out, if nothing matches, you haven't created anything, but the customer's asked the questions in your knowledge base, it'll sort of like fall back to Fin using that. So essentially we think the future here is that like Fin integrates this experience in a very seamless way. Over time, we'll probably explore going further than that, going and like using the same sort of tech that's, you know, making up the product roadmap on the call. But over time, we'll probably go a bit further than that and like actually say, okay, customer, do you want it to enable the same tech we use in Fin to rewrite that answer, that Resolution Bot answer you set up? So, you know, there's a lot to explore down there, but sort of the initial integration will be, if you Resolution Bot set up, it can take precedence, and you probably start off with the simple answers for Fin. You know, the top 5 questions, maybe you want to set up a Resolution Bot answer that really answers them in a perfect way that you've specified. Maybe you want to have Resolution Bot be able to trigger a custom action, something like that to actually resolve it.
Oh, gotcha. You just neatly anticipated my next question, which was really canny of you. But it was kind of more broadly just around, like, it's really, really clear that we've been intentional about designing Fin as a part of an customer service suite of products that already exist. This is not a thing that stands alone. And so, like, how do you think about Fin working with these kind of existing components of Intercom, like our custom bots for triage and support classification, but then also for these kind of follow-on custom actions and objects as well? This is maybe a Fergal and Emmet question.
Yeah, but I mean, I'll just start off and basically like, yeah, it integrates as sort of a first-class citizen of the platform. And so, you know, it's a complex question to answer, you know, every little edge case there. But basically, yes, this will be part of the platform. Yes, you will have a lot of control over it and be able to kind of like tread the existing platform capabilities around bots into it in sort of in that way I mentioned before. Or you'll be able to like say, hey, you know, start off and then like, you know, if you want to triage a conversation first without Fin and then like go into Fin later, you'll be able to do things like that. Maybe hand over to Emmet. Yeah.
Yeah. One thing I'd add is we're seeing lots of interesting opportunities to use or even adopt these in different ways and different orders. For example, if you have a robust resolution bot set of answers that are triggering really well for you, Finn can come in and play like a sweeper system, all of the things that are not covered by that core set of resolution bot answers. Or if you adopt Finn, super low barrier to entry, right? Then you're starting to see certain questions in which you want like additional specificity or exactness. You can start to build up your resolution bot answers on top of that as well. So they can be very complementary. And just to repeat what I was saying in my earlier section, that whole bot section, those bots are complementary to each other, is also complementary to the team who's in the inbox, who's answering questions themselves. And so there is a lot of scope to build a support system, I think, out of these different parts that are all part of the platform. And that's one of the things that we're really excited about, how this fits in, not just how it stands on its own.
Yeah, and I think Jerry Baumeister's question, I'm sorry if I've mangled your name, Jerry, kind of goes kind of a level above this again, because we're talking about kind of moving from answers to outcomes. If we think about the possibilities for Finn to interact with custom object data and triggering custom actions, like, kind of canceling a Shopify order, or getting a refund on your kind of delivery meal. How are you guys thinking about the opportunities for Finn to interact with those components of Intercom?
The previous answer, I mean, like the custom actions that it can take is also yet another extension that you can build from a resolution bot answer. So you can have a pre-canned resolution bot answer that provides just a very nicely written exact answer, or you can have something that actually can go and take an action, an order, reset your password. And there's really, you can take that pretty far once you get deep into hooking custom objects, works, and custom actions to actually act on them. So again, that's part of that whole system, I would say.
Yeah, so a ton of power under the hood. All right, we're going to take one more question from Luke Gaba before we go into our quick fire round. Luke's question is, why should I use Finn when our tech team can use a chat UI, less better UX compared to Intercom, but when plugged into the GPT API and with the right parameters, would maybe get to 90% of what Finn would respond to? Like, frankly speaking, if Finn feeds on our content and GPT makes the magic around natural language, both in terms of querying and answering, what is the... Great question, Luke. Fergal, do you want to jump in?
Sure, yeah. I really like the kind of the spicy direct questions. Yeah, look, like, there will of course be a proliferation of, folks going and taking like GPT and then like skinning that and building a bot around it. Where we are so far today, like we've done a lot of work. We're a pretty big team. We've done a lot of work recently around like, trust and like making sure that you can reliably trust it to just answer questions that are in your knowledge base. That's not that easy to do, kind of like, out of the gate. And then sort of like, medium term, as we've just been discussing, like this will be a first-class citizen of our platform. And so, yes, it'll answer your sort of like informational questions on day one, but it's not going to stop there. You're going to want to be able to, you're going to have this next generation bot. It's going to be able to like answer customer questions. It's going to be able to disambiguate them. But then you want this to be this like flywheel at the heart of like, an automated support system. You want it to be able to go and like take actions. You want it to be able to like resolve sort of like common questions independently. And we think that to do that, you're going to want kind of a platform built up around that. Yeah, I mean, you can probably get like pretty far if you have a team of developers, and if you're willing to spend development resources on this. I bet you could like do good things with like the OpenAI APIs out of the gate. But sort of like in the medium term, we just think this is going to be such an important and powerful part of your support system. You're probably going to want, I guess a big team like Intercom that's like trying to make it the best it can possibly be. That's sort of our bet, and we think there's a lot to do here. And we just think there's a really bright future here. People, I just see a scattering of other questions there around like, asking about like things like, hey, how do I get my information in there? How do I have it like take actions or answer questions that depend on like data specifically for my individual customer? Like there's so much to do here in this space. There's so much that's valuable and that's worth doing. And we sort of think that we're going to invest super heavily in this space. we think we're going to build an amazing product here. And so, yeah, we would love you to try out our version of the product at least, and to consider the scale of that investment, and how much we all have to do here to unlock this value. So yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, we are kind of approaching the top of the hour now, and I think we've just about got time for a quick fire round of Q&A just on some of the really hot topics that we've seen in the chat and in our Q&A tab today. The first one is around language capabilities. What languages can Finn support today, and how are we thinking about multilingual capabilities? Anyone can jump in and answer these, by the way, so over to you.
Cool. I think maybe I'll jump with that, right? So the large language models we're using out of the gate have a capability to answer many languages, and we feel that it's quite likely we're just going to be able to say yes, they do multilingual. Certainly for common languages, very rare languages, maybe the quality is going to go down, but certainly for I don't know, the top 100 languages in the world or something like that, they're probably going to do pretty well out of the gate. We have more testing to do to make sure that is at our quality bar, to where we're like, yes, you can definitely reliably deploy that today. But our initial testing is that yes, the underlying capabilities of these models are great multilingual. And so we're still investigating that, but we're very optimistic about multilingual capability for common languages. And I think this tech is relatively new. We're all going to learn about that very quickly. But yeah, I'm optimistic that we'll have multilingual extremely quickly.
Awesome, thanks, Fergal. Next question. This is like a one-word question. Pricing ?
Yeah, I can speak to that for a little bit. So we don't. That's start at the end. I'll tell you what's going on. We, as I'm sure a lot of you who are more involved know, the prices of models are moving around quite fast. The market's shifting. So how do we have forced ourselves to come out? We're pricing 6 weeks, very different worlds. So it's definitely an element of stand back and observe. I can say for sure we want this product to be extremely competitive with what's out there today in terms of other lesser bots, but also ridiculously competitive with the actual cost of businesses, which is the actual human cost of actually going ahead and delivering the answer, hand typing how to reset a password or whatever. That's our clear components to that. That's where we're at right now. But right now, as you can guess, there's a lot of variables shifting. So it could be a couple of weeks, but we tend to have more to say soon.
Okay, awesome. I know we had a bunch of questions about privacy and PII. So we'd love just to make sure we can hit on that quickly before we wrap, in terms of how we think about serving that data through Intercom and through OpenAI.
Cool. So basically, at the moment, with our current version, you have to be okay with your data going to OpenAI. That is just a limitation. There are other vendors out there in the space, and so potentially over time, we may support extra things. We're not sure in that yet, but right now, you've got to be okay with certainly with your data heading to a third-party large language model provider. Yeah, that's a limitation. We understand that won't work for some businesses, unfortunately. But we're going to continue to work on this. We're going to continue to look for options in this space. But right now, today, that's just it. You have to be okay with that to use the product.
Gotcha. And just to be clear, OpenAI stores some of the data, but they don't use it to train the models.
They don't use it to train the models. They do store it for a limited amount of time. And we're continuing to work on those terms and conditions. Look, we want to make this as adoptable as possible. We want to work with vendors like OpenAI to try and reduce the privacy risk and the privacy concerns here. We're going to continue to work on that. We're going to, certainly our aspiration here is that the privacy trade-offs you'll get with us are as good or better than you'll find anywhere else, because we'll be working with these vendors to try and make this product as adoptable as possible for as many of our customers as possible.
Amazing. All right. Last of our quickfire questions. We talked about Finn currently working based on existing help center content. Are we planning to extend this out to other content sources in future, like conversations, internal knowledge bases, macros, or unpublished help center articles?
Okay. So just to say, for conversations, there's a privacy risk. We can't just feed it in all the other conversations. Of course, we get that, there's so much knowledge that you have that's in your other conversations. We'd love to get some way of bringing that into Finn. For everything else, for all your public knowledge sources, like your developer docs and so on, we haven't built that yet. But it's of course something we will want to do and we would love to do. So don't have an exact timeline for that, but it's just such an obvious thing to want to do. Of course, we want to support that.
Yeah, makes total sense. And with that, that is a wrap on our webinar for today. I want to extend a huge thanks out to Des, to Fergal, to Emmet, and to Brian and Hugo, who've been manning the chat and the Q&A for the last hour as well. And before we go, there's just a couple of things to remind everybody of. If you're not on the waitlist for Fin yet and you want to be, you can sign up over at intercom.com/Fin or by clicking on the banner over on the Intercom homepage. If you are a customer and you are already on the waitlist, you heard Des earlier, you've got this fantastic window of opportunity to start to build out your help center content so you can start up and running with ease once you get access to Fin. If you're not yet an Intercom customer, look out for an email from us after this event with a direct link to start a free trial. And for everybody here today, we will send out a recording of the webinar, and we're going to go through and kind of pull all of the unanswered questions from the chat and the Q&A that we didn't get a chance to answer live today. And we will send over a roundup and responses to those as well. So huge thanks to everyone again for joining us today. If for anyone is in New York or San Francisco, you've got a chance to meet us in person in the next couple of weeks to continue the conversation. You can join us in New York on March the 30th or San Francisco on April the 4th. But otherwise, we will see you all out there soon. And thanks a lot.
Thanks so much, everyone.